Martell Holt is showing a level of confidence that honestly shocked many viewers. In a recent moment on Love and Marriage Huntsville, he looked straight at Maurice Scott and told him to sue him. Now, that is not something you say lightly, especially when you are dealing with serious accusations and people's reputations on the line. The way Martell said it, though, with so much boldness, almost daring Maurice to take him to court, is what really stood out. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the energy and the confidence behind them. And while Martell might feel like he can stand firm on his statements, Kimmi Scott, who was Maurice's wife, definitely picked up on a tone of disrespect toward her husband. That is where things start to get really interesting, because it's not just about Martell and Maurice, it's also about how Kimmi feels about the way her husband is being treated and portrayed. When you look at the dynamics of this group, especially on this show, you realize very quickly that every word, every accusation, and every bit of shade has the potential to create ripple effects. So when Martell told Maurice to sue us, it wasn't just casual talk. It was him basically saying, "I'm so confident in what I'm saying that I dare you to try me in court." That's a very different type of energy. And for Maurice, who is an actual attorney, hearing someone throw those words around so casually probably hit a nerve. Because while people might think lawsuits are just about proving a point, in reality they cost time, money, energy, and can expose things you might not want to be public. Now, in the conversation between Maurice and Martell, Martell was insisting that all four of them used to hang out together, hinting at some kind of rendezvous or situation that Maurice was flat out denying. Martell doubled down, repeating himself, saying it more than once, almost like he wanted to make sure Maurice knew he wasn't backing off. Then he threw in the challenge, "Sue us." That moment alone showed just how much confidence Martell had in his version of the story. For someone to tell you to sue them, they either feel completely untouchable, or they know that you don't want to go down that road for reasons of your own, and that's where things get tricky. Because Maurice, as an attorney, would know better than anyone else that lawsuits are not simple. If he were to sue Martell for defamation or slander, he would have the burden of proof. He would have to prove that what Martell said was false, damaging, and harmful to his reputation. That is not easy to do, especially when it comes to situations that may not leave a clear paper trail or undeniable evidence. It becomes a matter of testimony, credibility, and sometimes he said she said. And if you open that door, you also open the possibility of other things being brought up in court that you might prefer to stay private. For Martell, though, this is classic behavior. He has always been someone who uses his words and his confidence as weapons. Sometimes it works for him, and sometimes it completely backfires. But in this case, you could see the almost smug confidence in his face when he said "sue us." He didn't look worried, he didn't look nervous, he looked like a man who felt he had the upper hand. That's what made Kimmi step in with her own perspective, because from her point of view, this wasn't just playful banter or harmless accusations. This was disrespect toward her husband. And for Kimmi, who has stood by Maurice through a lot, seeing Martell drag her husband into a situation like this was crossing the line. Kimmy's reaction was very telling. She pointed out that despite all the conversations Maurice has had with Martell, trying to guide him, counsel him, and even support him, Martell still turned around and threw him under the bus. She described Martell as acting like a child, someone who was hurt and lashing out to hurt other people. That's an interesting way to look at it, because it suggests that Martell isn't being calculated so much as he's being reactive. But at the same time, Kimmi also made it clear that she does not believe Martell truly respects Maurice. And that's where things get deeper. Respect is everything in friendships, marriages, and partnerships. If one person feels like they are constantly giving advice, being there for someone, and trying to help them, but the other person turns around and disrespects them publicly, that can cause real cracks in the foundation of the relationship. Kimmi noticed that Martell might smile in Maurice's face, nod along, and say he hears him, but deep down, she feels that Martell does not respect her husband at all. That is a very heavy statement, because it doesn't just describe one disagreement, it describes the overall tone of their relationship. And the way she phrased it, saying Martell looks at Maurice as an extension of his brother, raises even more questions. Was she saying that Martell sees Maurice as less than, like he doesn't take him seriously, or was she hinting that Martell lumps Maurice into the same category as Marceau, with whom Martell has a long and complicated history? Either way, it was a clear sign that Kimmi feels protective of her husband and does not like the way Martell is treating him. Now, stepping back for a moment, we have to look at the bigger picture. This isn't the first time Martell has been accused of being aggressive, dismissive, or outright disrespectful in how he talks about other people on the show. He has a pattern of throwing out accusations, stirring the pot, and then daring people to challenge him. For some, it comes across as confidence, but for others, it looks like recklessness. And when you bring lawsuits into the conversation, it stops being just reality TV drama and becomes something that can affect people's real lives, reputations, and even finances. And let's be honest, court cases are not cheap. Retaining an attorney, going through the process, spending hours gathering evidence, paying legal fees, it all adds up. Which makes you wonder, is Martell truly in a position to be as confident as he is? Because unless he is absolutely certain that he can back up every single word he's said, opening himself up to a lawsuit could be risky. But maybe that's exactly why he said it. Maybe he knows Maurice doesn't want to take that risk either. Maurice himself has already been involved in lawsuits against bloggers, and one of those even backfired when Miss Black Titanic countersued him. That situation probably served as a reminder that when you go into court, you can't always predict the outcome. So for Maurice, hearing Martell tell him to sue us might have felt like bait, a challenge designed to provoke him, but not one he really wants to take up. And if that's the case, Martell's confidence might be less about his own position and more about knowing Maurice won't actually follow through. But then there's Kimmi. From her side, it seems like she wants Maurice to recognize the lack of respect and maybe take a stronger stance against Martell. Not necessarily by filing a lawsuit, but by not letting him get away with the constant digs and accusations. Because as long as Maurice downplays it, shrugs it off, or excuses Martell's behavior as him being hurt or like a kid, Martell has no reason to change. He can keep disrespecting them, keep making allegations, and keep stirring things up because he knows Maurice won't push back in a meaningful way. This also speaks to a larger theme on the show, the idea that the Scotts, as a family, tend to skirt around issues and avoid addressing things head-on. Carlos King himself once admitted that when the cast first came together, they made a pact not to talk about certain topics. That in itself is wild when you think about it, because reality TV is supposed to expose the truth, the drama, the mess. But if key players are agreeing behind the scenes to keep certain things off the table, then of course you're going to see them dodge questions, talk in circles, and protect each other when it matters most. That's exactly what makes moments like this so important. Martell forcing these issues onto the table, even if he does it in a messy way, breaks through that pact and brings the hidden tensions into the light. And that's why Kimmi's words carry weight. She isn't just saying Martell disrespects Maurice. She's also saying that the way this group handles things has allowed that disrespect to continue unchecked. So now the question becomes, will Maurice ever actually call Martell out in a real way? Will he take his wife's concerns seriously and demand respect, or will he continue to play it off, call Martell a hurt kid, and keep making excuses? Because as long as he lets Martell speak about him this way, the narrative will remain unchallenged. And once something is out there in the public eye, especially on a show with this kind of audience, it sticks. People start to form their own opinions, and silence can sometimes be seen as agreement. At the same time, you also have to wonder about Martell's motivations. Why is he so fixated on dragging Maurice into this? Why does he keep hinting at these rendezvous and repeating the same story over and over? Is it about proving a point, or is it about having leverage? Sometimes, in groups like this, people hold on to secrets, rumors, or half-truths as a way to maintain control. By constantly bringing it up and daring Maurice to sue, Martell keeps the issue alive, keeps Maurice defensive, and keeps himself in a position of power. But how long can that really last? At some point, if Maurice continues to deny and Martell continues to insist, one of them is going to lose credibility. Either Maurice will look like he's hiding something, or Martell will look like he's making things up. And when you bring Kimmi's feelings into the mix, it adds even more pressure. Because for her, this isn't just about reputation, it's about respect in her marriage. She doesn't want to feel like her husband is being dismissed, belittled, or dragged into drama unnecessarily. And if Maurice doesn't take a stand, that could create tension between him and Kimmi as well.